Prefacing this video by saying that my base routine has changed and I will make an updated video.
Good morning, my loves. It is day 2 in Miami, and I'm going to show you guys my Miami base routine.
I have pretty full eyebrows naturally, so I'm going in with the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Gel to just slick them upwards. This brow gel is a really strong hold, so if you're not someone who wants your brows to be frozen to your face, I recommend the one from Refy. This is the Saie Bronze Gel. I honestly feel like this didn't do as much as I thought it was going to. I think this only works if you're going for like a clean girl glam, but it did allow my primer to adhere to my face a little bit better. This is the Danessa Myricks Glow Serum. I absolutely love this primer when I'm going for a softer glam. It's really lightweight and doesn't have an oily finish. If you follow me on TikTok or Instagram, you know my favorite foundation is the Armani Luminous Silk Foundation. This is the shade 13.8 of their new formula. It is a really good shade match, especially if you're my skin tone and have a neutral undertone. This brush is also from Saie and is a really good foundation brush. I decided to use this concealer from Estee Lauder as a bronzer, but it came out more like a contour, so I don't know if I'd recommend. But I like to underpaint my bronzer because I have not figured out how to get it to not be super messy, and I'm using this other brush from Saie to blend everything out all over my face. You also want to use this to contour your eyelid and your cheekbones as well. It is really important that you make sure your bronzer or contour is properly diffused before you move on, otherwise your makeup is going to look super muddy and really harsh, and that is not what we want. I also like to use a pointed, more angular brush. This is from Real Techniques, and I'm going to use that to blend out the contour and bronzer that's on my nose. Again, you want to go in with a very light hand depending on the consistency of your product. This concealer is a little bit thicker than a normal bronzer. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Contour. I use it as a bronzer because this shade is quite warm. It's the second darkest shade. This is probably one of my favorite bronzing products because it's not super thick and is really easy to layer. For blush, we're going in with, I believe, Pink Posy from Juvia's Place, and I'm applying that to the high points of my cheek. The brush I'm using is a powder brush from Real Techniques, and I really love it when I'm trying to do a focused blush look because it helps to diffuse it and spread the blush. For my first layer of concealer, I'm going in with the one from Huda Beauty. This is the shade Crumble. I would recommend going in with a darker shade first. That's something I've learned since I've recorded this tutorial. You want to go in with a darker shade so that your brighter shade doesn't look ashy when you blend it out. But that's not what I did here. So I'm just applying that on the inner portions of my face. I highly recommend you learn your face map. This is the Prada Beauty Concealer, I believe in the shade DN7, and I'm using that darker shade on the rest of my face. Again, I do think this was too light. Also, the lighting in this bathroom is really off, so I wasn't able to see how bright the concealer actually was. You're going to put concealer anywhere that light would naturally hit your face. That's the way it was explained to me, and I think that really helps to give me a better idea of where it needs to be concealed. Normally, I do not set my concealer in between steps, but because Miami was kind of humid, I decided to go in with the Charlotte Tilbury spray in between the layers. For my first layer of concealer, I always like to blend with a damp sponge, and I'm going to start with the darker shades first. This is really important because you don't want to mix the sponge with the darker and lighter concealers. Your face is just going to look really messy and incohesive. I blend my concealers from the outer edges first. This is another step I learned that has really changed my makeup game. It makes it easier to focus the product where you want it to be, and then I go over top the inner corners with a brush. Because I plan on taking pictures, I'm using a second layer of concealer. This is the shade, I believe, Umber from Hourglass, and I really don't like these concealers anymore. They just don't have a really good shade range. For pressed powder, I'm using the new Huda Beauty pressed powder. This is the shade Banana Bread, and I just think everything was a little bit more yellow, but again, I could not tell because of the mirror. So I would highly recommend using a concealer in a different shade and then using this pressed powder on top. But I do like that because this pressed powder has a little bit of a neutral undertone. Sometimes I use it to help neutralize any concealer that I feel like is too yellow. You want to put powder anywhere you've put concealer. I normally wouldn't use a brightening powder all over my face, but again, I was going for pictures. I'm using the Laura Mercier Ultra Blurring Powder all over my face to set the rest of my concealer. You also want to take it over the bridge of your nose to help soften the look of the bronzer, and then I'm going to bake a little. I only bake when I'm taking pictures. I've been absolutely loving this bronzer from MAC. It is such a perfect shade. I'm gonna go find it and drop it in the comments when I remember. I recently realized that a lot of my bronzers were actually too dark and cool for my skin tone, so using a warmer, almost blush shade of bronzer has really helped me to elevate my makeup game, and you want to put that anywhere you've put cream bronzer or liquid contour. I believe this is the Huda Beauty blush that I'm using. I don't remember the shade. I'll drop those later. This brush is also from Huda Beauty. And then I go in with this face powder from Estee Lauder. I love using face powders. This is my secret for getting that super easy, soft blend all over my face. You can also use this to tone down any unwanted brightness, and it just helps everything to look more seamless. These longwear lip liners from Juvia's Place are amazing. I don't know why more people don't talk about them. They're super long lasting, so especially if you're going out for the day and you know you're going to be eating, talking, whatever, you don't really have to reapply them. And they have a really good shade range of browns for dark skin. I like to diffuse my lip liners a little so that the line doesn't look super harsh. And then I go in with a pink lipstick from Laura Mercier. My favorite glosses of all time are these glosses from Smashbox. It does not matter the color or the texture that you are going for. These glosses are so perfect. They have a very wide shade range. And I also like to use a pinker shade to seal the pink gloss in between. I don't really rub my lips together, but I just matte them softly so that everything can be a little bit smoother. And this was the finished result. It ended up coming better than I expected. As I mentioned though, I have changed my routine since, so I'll update you guys.